Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes when a property auction hunter bids on a property at auction? Today we're going to take you through a step-by-step journey through our research process of an upcoming property. We will show you how we find properties, what kind of research we do, and how we consider all the potential upsides as well as the downsides before placing a bid. Stay tuned to the end to find out if we are actually going to bid.
Hi everyone, this is Piotr Rusinek from Property Auction Hunters and I'm joining Jay here today. We help people navigate this exciting world of property auctions through our channels, Property Auction Hunters, as well as our two companies, the Auction Buyers Club and Hammered Auctions. In this video, we'll be diving deep into the research phase of the auction bidding. We'll cover everything from finding the property, doing initial research, doing the viewing, reviewing the legal pack and crunching the numbers, and then at the end we're going to reveal whether we're going to bid on this property or not. So let's start with step number 1.
Since we work for both buyers and sellers through Hammered and the Auction Buyers Club, we are constantly reviewing auction catalogues. So it's important for us to make sure that we're also looking for deals for us and for deals for clients. Sometimes, just sometimes, a property jumps out and says, Jay, Piotr, please buy me. So this mixed-use property on Boundary Road in St John's Wood is exactly that kind of opportunity. Now, this jumped out at us for a myriad of different reasons. The pound per square foot is really attractive in St John's Wood. I myself worked literally the road behind Boundary Road on Belgrave Gardens when I worked for Auction House London, and I know that Piotr was working nearby in Paddington and the surrounding area. So it's something that stood out to both of us. We had intimate knowledge of the road, of the area, and the things that we could do with this property that just made it jump out at us. This is a deal you have to do.
So before we even think of contacting the auctioneer or scheduling the viewing, we hit the ground running with an online research. So our go-to resource is EIG, Essential Information Group portal, which is a treasury trove of property history information. So by digging into the property's past and the auction history of the street, we can uncover valuable insights that might not be readily apparent from just looking at the auction catalog. So in this very example, when we click on the street history, we can see here that number 104 Boundary Road sold in the auction in December 4 months ago at 490,000, and that property was generating £33,000 per annum. So for us, what's important is to understand why this property was in the auction. Is it the same seller? What really happened with it, and how is it different to our property? And on EIG we can also get the catalog information for properties that were offered in the past for some auctioneers. And in this example we can see that this was also a mixed-use property. This was also occupied by the same law firm, and this was also with residential upper parts. However, it was just a 3-bedroom flat, not 2 1-bedrooms like in our example, and there is no freehold ground rent element that's valuable. It's already an extended lease with 150 years or so left on that lease. So basically it was very much a commercial investment with a lease on this property holding over at £33,000, and the property itself was much bigger, probably extended with approximately 1,500 square feet of space. So very different, and that gives us an opportunity to ask some questions of the auctioneer and find out a little bit more about this property before going to the viewing. So we're going to do that, and then the next step is we're going to send Jay off to viewing. So once we have a solid background on the property, a viewing becomes crucial. Here we focus on several key aspects. What's the current use of the property? How is the property currently being used, and is it maximizing its potential? So we know it's a solicitor's office, we know there's a dispute, we need to put our ear to the ground That's why we're sending Jay to go to the viewing and do a little bit of a gossip. But what's the property like? What's going on there? And what we can do. What are the physical features? So we want to know what the access is like for the flat, what the light is, and what the windows are like, what the meters are, and is the separate supply for the commercial shop and the upper parts, and several other small things that are on our checklist of stuff to do. Now, local insights. Obviously, we know the area. However, the moment we go there, the moment we speak with the people, local people, we might find out so many new things. And it's so important to go and do this bit of research and find out what's going on. So, over to Jay.
So I've literally just come down, pulled up. I'm on the road next to it, and I'm waiting for the viewing. So the viewing is going to be 10 o'clock in the morning. So the building is a commercial premises, ground and lower ground, rear garden, 2 flats above. Both flats are on short leases. The tenants is currently owner occupied, but they have a lease in place. And they've been there since 1990, and the lease has been holding over for God knows how long. So I smell opportunity, and I'm going to be the early bird this morning, and I'm going to get me a worm. So consider this update number 1, and let's see where this goes. Okay, so fresh out of the viewing, couldn't have gone better if I tried. So I get there a couple of minutes early. The auctioneer turns up. Actually, it's a chap who's fairly new to auctions, and he's been watching the YouTube channel. So already made a friend. So we go into the property. It's a solicitor's office, and get the camera out, and I just start recording. So one of the things I do, just to make sure things are fresh in my mind, we go to the viewing, we record, we make sure that we can look back and double check our thoughts and see if we've missed anything. So I start recording. I've done a full lap of the property. I then go outside, I start tracing my steps, heel to toe, how long the garden is. And I start looking at a couple of the other features. Halfway through, I stop recording. The guy who owns it, one of the partners of the law firm, comes in, very friendly guy, starts talking to me. Says, oh, there's about 30 something people registered on the legal pack. It's a big issue between myself and my business partner. This is court ordered. Start sharing everything. Bear in mind, the legal pack isn't out yet. So this is all preview stuff. We got these big complaints. We have another building across the road that went to auction in December, and both of us were bidding on that. So I'm now getting a bit of a picture that there's going to be a bit of a fight maybe on this lot, or maybe that this is just a smaller property. They don't really want to keep it. It's too much aggravation. There's enough fighting. Who knows? Whilst I'm there, there's another viewer there. He doesn't get to hear all of this stuff. This is gold. He also let slip that the property's been flooded, a really big flood in the last number of years. And there was a big insurance payout, etc., etc., etc. And he said other people that have been to view, I think maybe went to view it when the auctioneer had sold the one across the road for them. A couple of those people are thinking one of them wants to move into the premises and use it for their own commercial purposes, their own business purposes. One person wants to do a residential conversion. I think that's going to be really sticky with this property, unless the wind blows in your favor and you priced all that in, etc., etc. But that means that you won't be paying as much as what anyone else will be doing, especially not the owner occupier, the guy who wants to buy it to work in it. But the juice in this one is above this commercial premises are 2 flats. They're both on 54 years remaining. Neither one responded to the Section 5B notices, so neither one have reserved their rights to match the auctioneer's price. So yeah, let's see where this goes. I quite like it. I'm not going to say I'm excited yet, but do I think that I have crossed the Serengeti and spotted the beast that we want to slay? Yes. I'm going to get my bow and arrow, my gun, my spear, whatever it's going to take, the traps. We're going to see what we can do with this one. But it has to pass the due diligence. It has to pass the deal stack. There has to be multiple exits. There has to be all of these things that we focus on as good property auction hunters. So I'll check back in shortly.
So now the legal pack. This is a critical piece of the puzzle. So we review it thoroughly ourselves as a first step to identify any major red flags that could derail this entire transaction. In this case, the legal pack revealed a few key points. Number one, the dispute details. There's a clear indication that there's a dispute and that the buyer is buying subject to that dispute. So we already know about this, and we're fairly comfortable to the level that we could be comfortable with a dispute, but we're fairly comfortable about it, and we kind of know how we would handle this whole dispute if we end up buying this property. Now, there's a seller buyback clause. Very interesting clause in the special conditions that basically says that the seller can bid on the property themselves in excess of the reserve price. So this essentially signals their strong interest in retaining the property, and that's really important because that's probably going to drive the price up. So now special conditions. They have already been amended once, and I expect they will be amended further given the heated nature of this transaction. So we need to keep a close eye on this legal pack all the way until the auction. So overall assessment of this property is that the legal pack looks fairly decent, comprehensive. There's a dispute, but we're comfortable about it, and we cannot see any major red flags. So unless our solicitor tells us this is a red flag, don't bid on this property, we're probably gonna end up bidding and follow the next step to find out how we calculate how much we're gonna bid.
When it comes to bidding at auction, we categorize our properties into 3 zones. We used to call this our traffic light system, so this is going to be really simple for everyone to get. First of all, we have the green zone. This is the price range at which we can buy the property, where the opportunities are just too good to be true. We would always pay this price for this asset. Now, how many of those do we pick up in the green zone? Don't ask me, I'll cry myself to sleep. But the next one we have is the amber zone. This is where we pick up most of the properties that we're looking at. The amber zone is above the green zone, below the red zone, but it's in that area where we think, okay, if we manage and mitigate the risks as best as possible, this is still a really, really, really good deal. The red zone. This is where it feels like you're gambling a little bit. You kind of have to hope that everything rides on this deal going absolutely smoothly. The wind is blowing in your direction, the planning is going quickly, your JV partner or your bridging or your development finance, everything goes perfectly. As trained and expert property people, we know that doesn't always happen. So the red zone for us feels like gambling. So when you're looking at properties and you're placing bids, don't just have one fixed number in mind. You put a lot of pressure on that number. Spread it across a whole range of where you feel the most comfortable to where you feel the least comfortable, and that will be your traffic light system. So that's how we categorize the pricing when we're looking to bid at auction.
Okay, so let's dive into the bidding strategy in practice. So this property's got 2 components: the freehold ground rent for the 2 flats, and then the retail space. So each of those needs to be evaluated separately for a comprehensive bid. Now, start with the leasehold element. So let's start with the leasehold element. So each flat, if we own the flat, would be worth approximately 450,000, but there are 54 years left on those leases, and those leases are sold off. However, as freeholder, we would be entitled to a premium when the leaseholder would want to extend that lease. And if we use the formula, we get to the end value of for the premium of approximately £50,000 per flat. and there are 2 flats, so that would total £100,000. Given the market uncertainties around the freehold and leasehold reform, a typical offer from the ground rent buyers would be at about 25 to 30% of that premium value as it is right now. So our valuation for this freehold ground rent element would be approximately £30,000. This is what we would be prepared to pay just for this freehold ground rent element. Now, let's move to the next bit, the commercial retail space. So that generates currently £17,000 per annum in rent. Applying 8% yield to that would basically result in a value of approximately £220,000. So 220 plus 30 is 250,000. That is an absolute no-brainer value for this property as it is right now, not taking into account any hope value. So this is our green zone, comfortably above the guide price of 225,000 and extending even up to 280,000, given that it's a very low risk property at this level. So our ambitious gold mine scenario involves converting the retail space into a high-end residential flat. So considering the conversion, additional costs, and a desired profit of about £25,000 on estimate end value would mean that from the £800,000 end value, we would have to take about 200k for the refurb, about 200k for the profit that we require, and about 50k for additional costs that will be involved in this, like planning and all kinds. So that's 450,000. 800 minus 450 is 350,000. However, the planning isn't guaranteed. It's going to take some time, and we need to account for some things going wrong. For us, it's best if we take away another 50,000 of that value to account for those risks. So we would be at a £300,000 value for this retail space, given the potential to convert it into a flat. So 300 for the retail space, 30k for the uppers. That's our amber zone covered between 280 and £300,000. So that's our end of our amber zone. Now, the red zone is anything above 330,000. And that doesn't mean that this property doesn't work at 330,000. I bet even if someone buys this property at 400k, if they have very different plan with it, if they have better idea of how to get the planning, or maybe they already own properties on this road and they know all the ins and outs of this property, they would be happy to pay 400. We are not. Our amber zone is 280 to 330. Our red zone, anything above 330. So we're not going to bid at anything above 330. So join us next week to see how our bidding strategy played out and what unfolds with this intriguing property. See you guys next week.